What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning into this quick thoughts episode. We got another mock draft Monday with championship weekend behind us. I had a reaction video that I put out to both the post game reaction to both the NFC and AFC championship games. But the draft is always a focus, and I love hopping on here on mock draft Mondays and putting a video out there to see what the scenario is like now that we have more information on the draft order, some possible scenarios that could be happening, especially with Chicago having the top pick and such an interesting dynamic of the potential to build around Justin Fields and trade away that first overall pick, the potential to draft Caleb Williams and trade away Justin Fields, the potential to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. first overall and give a great weapon to Justin Fields. A lot of fun potential in these mock drafts. And we're going to be starting out, obviously, with the Bears, but last mock draft, I had the Giants trading up to the first pick. And similarly, I'm going to have the Giants trading with the Bears, but this time for Justin Fields. And I don't know if it's necessarily likely. It was a mock that I saw on Reddit. I'd love to give the guy credit if I remember his username, but shout out to Giants Reddit. Not that I'm on there a whole lot, but I saw this mock of Justin Fields getting traded for a trade down. So what this is essentially, I'm going to add some more picks onto the back. Not that it really matters, but more the overall point. I'm not going to build the package all to the to the hilt. But the trade is Justin Fields and the 9th overall pick to the Giants for the 6th overall pick. So the Chicago Bears move on from Justin Fields, but they move up 3 spots in a draft where that matters a whole lot. And I think it's something where the Giants would probably rather do that than give up a first. I think they definitely would rather do that than give up next year's first. And I don't know what Justin Fields is going to require, but guys who know a lot more than me, like Mel Kiper Jr., say that it's going to require a first round pick and an early first round pick to get Justin Fields. I don't know if I buy that necessarily, but the Giants should expect to be improved. They shouldn't expect to have the 6th overall pick next year, so maybe that pick is worse. But nonetheless, that's what I'm going to assume is that the Giants and Bears are trading. Bears are trading up to 6th overall to take another weapon for Caleb Williams, who they'll take first overall, and then the Giants trade back, but they get their quarterback in the future. At least they think. Let's go ahead and put that trade through. We said the Bears at first overall. Nothing changed there. They're going to take Caleb Williams. I mean, I've seen some people say that Drake May could go first overall. I just don't buy it. I think Caleb Williams is the best talent in the draft. I don't feel strongly that he's the best talent in the draft, but I think he's most likely to go number 1 overall. Next up, we have Washington at pick 2. Now, I think they're going quarterback all the way. The more time goes on, the more that feeling grows in me. Drake May makes a lot of sense for them. Jaden Daniels could also make sense here. I'm going to have them take a Jaden Daniels, giving them a more athletic profile for Washington, a la RG3 of past years, right? There's some storylines there. And that leaves Drake May for the Patriots, who love how this top of the draft is turning out. I mean, either way, New England's getting a quarterback at 3, whether that's Drake May or Jaden Daniels. But it's clear Gerard Mayo has hinted at getting a quarterback, and that makes a lot of sense for them. I think it's an A+ pick. And Arizona pick 4. I mean, it's difficult to find a mock draft where Arizona is not picking Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, because at the end of the day, I severely doubt. I said the Chicago Bears have the potential to take Marvin Harrison Jr. first overall. I severely doubt that happens at the end of the day. Even if they keep Justin Fields and trade back from that first overall pick, they're not getting Marvin Harrison Jr. So Arizona being the 4th pick, with the first 3 picks being quarterbacks in 99% of mock drafts, they take Marvin Harrison Jr., and I think they love that. They love giving a talented weapon to Kyler Murray. And then the Chargers at pick 5. You can tell I'm thinking about basketball. I got the Nuggets Bucks on my other screen here, and I just watched the Nets blow out the Jazz with Ben Simmons' return. I'm very excited for. I'm one of the few Nets fans that loves Ben Simmons on this team. But anyway, back to the Chargers here. I could see the Chargers going a number of ways. I could see them going tackle. I could see them going weapon. Jim Harbaugh's a huge hire. I love the hiring. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to build out the offense. He's going to make it faster. Malik Neighbors does that. Gives Justin Herbert another elite weapon. And they're making up for last year for blowing the pick to take the wide receiver at TCU, whose name I'm blanking on at the moment. Anyway, they make up for that, and they take Malik Neighbors and get one of the top talents in this draft. Chicago at pick 6. So here we go. They traded up, and they're going to get, I mean, in this position, you probably hoped a guy like Malik Neighbors would slip to you, right? If the Chargers go Brock Bowers, then Malik Neighbors falls to Chicago. But I don't think with Cole Kmet being the tight end in Chicago for the near future, I don't think they go Bowers here. They could go offensive tackle. They could go Rome Odunze, honestly. And if you want to really, fire up a draft, do you go Roma Dunze? But you should protect Caleb Williams. I think you should go Joe Altier if you're the Chicago Bears. Yeah, you got to provide him some more protection. Justin Fields was running around for his life, and Caleb Williams, although he has the potential to make plays in terms of with his legs, in terms of escaping the pocket and still being able to throw downfield, he's not a runner in the same way that Justin Fields is. And so I think you really need to protect him and make sure he's not going to get hurt in his rookie year. Tennessee at pick 7. Listen, I think they go tackle at the end of the day. It's tough to assume they go any other way. And with Olu Fashanu still on the board, I think that's still a good situation for them. I know there's a potential for them to go wide receiver, and I've had them taking wide receiver in other mock drafts, but I just feel like if Fashanu's on the board, that's the direction they're going. Atlanta at pick 8. Listen, they're saying Atlanta for a wide receiver. I really feel as time goes on, Atlanta's going to target a defensive player. And for the Jets and Giants, that's a great thing because that means Rome Odunze and Brock Bowers are there for their picks, whichever way they go. But I think Dallas Turner makes a lot of sense in Atlanta. The recent head coaching hires on the defensive side of the ball, I'm blanking on his name, but he was a defensive coordinator for the LA Rams. And he's a guy who is going to prioritize defense. And maybe that doesn't mean absolutely going defense in this pick, but in this case, I think with Dallas Turner being a top end talent, although I don't think he's a top 9 talent, I think he's a top 10 or 12 talent at the very worst. So I'm going to have them taking Dallas Turner, gives them an edge rusher that really helps throughout their defense. And I think Atlanta's an interesting team just because they need a quarterback, and I don't think they go quarterback here. It could be a team that's in play for Justin Fields. I made a video on this channel about that. About their ideal offseason. Of course, half of that didn't come true because half of it was about getting Bill Belichick to be their head coach. But nonetheless, if they don't have a good quarterback here at their pick where they feel comfortable, I think Dallas Turner makes sense for them. Giants at pick 9, pick 9. Probably love the fact that Roma Dunze is still here. I mean, I for a while I thought the Giants were going to go quarterback. I still think that's a possibility, but pick 9 seems a little early for that. Well, I guess I just mentioned them trading for Justin Fields. So what I don't know what I'm talking about. Ignore me. I think they love this scenario, right? You have some speed in Jalen Hyatt. You have Darren Waller, who they're hoping will be healthy. You have Saquon Barkley, who I'm sure they're going to either re-sign a franchise tag. You give another weapon in Roma Dunze to Justin Fields. I think they had solid pieces on this offensive line with Andrew Thomas at left tackle. I think they need to just bite the bullet and move Evan Neal into guard. And then maybe you get a tackle later in this draft. You got a center in John Michael Schmitz that you're going to build around as well. Listen, I don't hate the offense they're building. And with Brian Dable at the helm, who's great at developing quarterbacks, and Mike Kafka at their offensive coordinator position, who's getting head coaching interviews right now, even though the Giants have the 6th overall pick coming into this draft. I think you have to feel good about where the offense is going with Justin Fields at the helm, too. The Jets at pick 10. Listen, I'm not a huge fan of taking Brock Bowers for the Jets, but at the end of the day, he's a top maybe 6 or 7 talent in this draft. And even though they don't have a desperate need at tight end, right? I think Tyler Conklin's been pretty good for them. I think Jeremy Ruckert has been pretty good for them. I think CJ Uzoma is a little overpaid, but still decent. Adding a tight end, a top tight end talent in Brock Bowers, I think is exciting for this offense. You give Aaron Rodgers another weapon alongside Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. You have to assume they're going to make at least one weapon addition, whether that's signing a guy like Calvin Ridley or T. Higgins or Mike Evans or trading for a guy like Devontae Adams. Maybe Brock Bowers is that upgrade they're looking for. Minnesota at pick 11. Listen, Minnesota has needs all over the defense, and if they're bringing back Kirk Cousins, there's no reason to go quarterback. Kool-Aid McKinstry could be a guy for them, but Latu, I've had them drafting him in multiple mock drafts, and I'm going to do it again at pick 11. I think that really plugs a hole for them on the defensive side. They need so much on the defense. Denver at pick 12. I don't know what Denver's doing at the quarterback position, so part of me would just love to just drop down a little bit and take Michael Penix Jr. I just can't. I can't. I'm going to stay at the top of the board here. It has me, it's suggesting for me to take a corner here. I like Nick Wiggins to play opposite Patrick Surtain. Is that where they go? They could go Cooper DeJean. I mean, Kool-Aid McKinstry is certainly good. Terrion Arnold could be the play. He's got a lot of raw talent that I think teams will be excited about. I don't think they go pass rusher, even though that's listed as a need here. I think the secondary could use a boost. I'm going to go Nate Wiggins here, cornerback out of Clemson. It just adds another piece for them on that defensive backfield. And Sean Payton loves, hard hitting defensive backs. I think Nate Wiggins really finds his way in Denver's system. Vegas at pick 13. Listen, Vegas, could you be interested in a quarterback? Maybe. Is it too early to take Michael Penix Jr.? This draft is just me debating how soon I want to pull the trigger on Michael Penix Jr. and for what team. No, I don't think they do. I think solidifying the offensive line is certainly a must. They're probably losing their right tackle in free agency, so a guy like J.C. Latham could play on either side. I think that makes a lot of sense for them. New Orleans probably hates that J.C. Latham went to the Vegas Raiders, but at the end of the day, Jared Verse is not a bad consolation prize. Tyrese Fuaga is not a bad consolation prize. A lot of people think Fuaga is a better pick than Latham. I've seen him going higher in expert mock drafts. We'll go Fuaga for them. Get a talent on that offensive line to help protect Derek Carr. Pick 15 with the Indianapolis Colts. It's either corner or wide receiver in my mind for them. Terrion Arnold could be a fit here. Kool-Aid McKinstry just slid a little bit past their valuation, but Terrion Arnold, I think, is valued higher in a lot of teams' minds. So maybe I'm going to go Terrion Arnold here for the Indianapolis Colts. I think that just adds another piece into their secondary. Seattle at pick 16. Man, I've had them in so many drafts taking Jerzon Newton. Do I do that again? I mean, they could go Amarius Mims. They need some help on that offensive line. I'm gonna go Jerzon Newton. So many mock drafts I had them taking him, but he just feels like a Pete Carroll guy, even though Pete Carroll's not there anymore. He feels like a Seattle defensive lineman, right? Just a big guy that's gonna eat. Hungry interior defensive lineman. I think he just fits perfectly. Even though we don't know their system entirely, right? Their head coach could be Dan. We don't even know their head coach yet. It could be Dan Quinn. It could be Brian Johnson for all I know. Could be sorry, Ben Johnson, not Brian Johnson. Hopefully not. Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator from the Lions, not Brian Johnson, fired offensive coordinator from the Philadelphia Eagles. It could be a number of guys. It could be Bill Belichick for all I know. So this is kind of just assuming, but Jerzon Newton just feels like a Seattle Seahawk. Pick 17 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Corner or wide receivers are both areas that I could see them going. Keon Coleman could make sense here, but I'm going to stop the slide on Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think him going here to the Jaguars could be an ideal landing spot for him. I think Doug Peterson would be very excited to run his name up to the phone. Pick 18 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, unless they lose T. Higgins in free agency, which they might, but I doubt. I think they're going to franchise tag him, honestly, and then try to work out a deal. I think they go tackle all the way. Amarius Mims is a top tackle talent on the board. Troy Fontenot is certainly someone I would consider if I'm the Bengals, but Amarius Mims seems like a good pick, good value there. The Rams at pick 19. They need help on that defense, man. I don't care who it is. It could be Verse, it could be DeGene, it could be Robinson. I think Verse is the top talent available right now. Just plug a hole in that Rams defense. They desperately need help. And then losing their coordinator is certainly not going to help as well. And who knows the future of Aaron Donald on top of that. Pittsburgh at pick 20. I've had Cooper DeJean being drafted by the Steelers in numerous drafts, and maybe it's just the black and yellow of Iowa going to the black and yellow of the Steelers, but he just feels like a Pittsburgh Steeler. They need help opposite Joey Porter in that backfield. I can see them going tackle again to play across from Broderick Jones. No, they're going to go Cooper DeJean if these are the options. You take the best corner available. Miami at pick 21. Now they're going to go tackle, I think. Troy Fontenot makes a ton of sense for them. Tua gets hit way too often, and he has since his first year starting. He's done a better job of keeping himself healthy, but you need to protect him a little bit more to give him the opportunity to try to hit his second and third read, which he seems to struggle with, especially when pressure's on him. Fontenot instantly becomes a player for that offensive line. Philadelphia at pick 22. They're a tough one to forecast. They certainly need help in that defense backfield. I mean, they were miserable against the Bucks. Quinyon Mitchell has certainly risen up draft boards, the corner from Toledo. He could be a pick here. I've had them taking Cameron Kitchens in various drafts. I believe I've had them taking Kamari Lassiter in previous drafts as well. But Quinyon Mitchell seems to be the top defensive backfield talent available. You can argue, between those few, but I think that makes sense for them. I think they like that pick. Although part of me just wanted to go Lassiter because he's from Georgia, and Philly seems to love Georgia's defensive players. Houston at pick 23. Houston could add another wide receiver. Keon Coleman is fun. He had Keon Coleman to take Tank Dell and Nico Collins, all being thrown to by CJ Stroud. Ooh, Brian Thomas Jr. too. Oof. It's tough not to take one of those two, but at the end of the day, I think they need help more on the defensive end. Robinson and Trice could both be the pick here. I like Braylon Trice going in and filling in this D'Amico Ryan's defense. I might have had them picking him in previous mock drafts, but I think that's a lot of fun. Dallas at pick 24. Dallas could go wide receiver, play opposite of CD Lamb. Keon Coleman opposite of CD Lamb or Brian Thomas Jr. I like Brian Thomas Jr. That big body offense, that big body wide receiver fitting into that Mike McCarthy offense. That's a lot of fun. I like that. Brian Thomas Jr. opposite of CD Lamb. Ooh, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. Okay, Green Bay at pick 25. I don't think Green Bay loves the way this draft shook out. They need help in the defensive backfield. You need help at tackle. I mean, Jordan Morgan's not a bad pick here. I'm gonna take Jordan Morgan. I've had him being drafted in the back end of the first in many mock drafts so far. I think he could make sense for Green Bay. Help give Jordan Love some more protection so he's not running around and scrambling and making poor decisions like he did at the end of the 49er game. Tampa Bay at pick 26. Boy, they love Keon Coleman falling to them. I've had Keon Coleman being drafted by them in numerous drafts. If Mike Evans is out the door, which is certainly a possibility considering they don't have a whole lot of cap space, if I'm not mistaken, and they got to re-sign Baker Mayfield or at least some quarterback to start for them. Hopefully it's Baker for their sake and for his sake. Um, Keon Coleman could make sense here. Plug him in at wide receiver, take Mike Evans' spot. Like that pick for them. Arizona at pick 27 via the Texans. They probably don't love that this pick is this late, but you do what you can. You trade where you can. Robinson's a fun pass rusher for them to bring in. They also have Lassiter as a suggested one, just because corner is a big need for them. I like Robinson out of Penn State. I think that makes sense. And Marvin Harrison Jr. and Robinson from Penn State as their two picks in the first round. Arizona has to love this, and then they got one of the earlier picks in the second round as well, I believe. Gotta love how that draft turned out for them. Buffalo at pick 28. Wide receiver is a suggested pick here. I don't know. I I don't love anybody available here for them, to be honest. I mean, they're suggesting Troy Franklin. If we're going Troy Franklin, I'd rather go Adonai Mitchell. I think he's the better top end talent. You know what? I'm gonna go Adonai Mitchell. That's a lot of fun. I mean, Stephon Diggs, you have to imagine, is going to have a bounce back. I don't know what the future is for Gabe Davis in this Buffalo offense. Adding AD Mitchell to that offense with Josh Allen at quarterback, that's a lot of fun. You have to admit. Detroit at pick 29. There's been a few heart picks, by the way. You could clearly tell. I'm rooting for fun and not necessarily for um, what's actually going to happen. Detroit at pick 29 could go quarterback. And even though Jared Goff took him to the NFC Championship game, I think Detroit's realistic in the idea that he's not going to be the guy to take them to the Super Bowl. It's hard though to look your fan base in the eye and say, and look your quarterback in the eye and say, thanks for taking us this far. This is the second team you've done that for. We're now going to replace you. And that's essentially what you'd be doing. I mean, Michael Penix Jr. wouldn't start right away, but he's going to be the quarterback of the future if you're taking him at pick 29. I just can't do it to Jared Goff and that team and that city. I'm going to have him taking Kamari Lassiter, shore up the defensive side of the football, help with the defensive backfield. Baltimore could go wide receiver, especially if Odell Beckham leaves. I don't hate that pick. I don't really love anybody else at the top of this list here. Kalen King could be a play for them. You know what? Troy Franklin makes sense for them. I don't hate that pick 30. KC at pick 31. Listen, I mean, it sucks that they're playing in the Super Bowl, I guess is a weird way to say, because I've had the mock drafts going all the way back to like pick 24 where they get a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. or Keon Coleman. And now with Adonai Mitchell, Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin, and then Brian Thomas Jr. going in the several picks before them, they're not too excited about the wide receiver prospects at the top of this list here. But Xavier Worthy, I mean, he could end up being a back end of the first round pick. I don't hate that for them. Two Texas wide receivers going in the first round of the draft is a little surprising, but I don't love any of the top end talent otherwise here. Let me see the wide receiver position. I mean, Xavier Legette. No, I mean, we're reaching too far at this point. Yeah, Xavier Worthy makes sense. Both of the two top wide receivers here named Xavier. I think that makes sense for them. I think Kansas City's okay with that. I mean, I know they have needs at other positions, but wide receiver is certainly the big one. Rasheed Rice looks to be their only really solid talent in that group. Maybe they have pick 32, obviously, but nonetheless, I don't think San Francisco's going offense. They're going defense, and I mean their secondary has been awful in these playoffs. I don't care who it is. We could go corner, we could go safety. Cameron Kinchins could make sense for them. Kalen King could make sense for them. I don't hate either of those picks. If you want to just flip a coin between those two, I am fine with it. But I mean, in the game versus Detroit, their secondary looked awful. Like anytime anybody got the ball past Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, they were gone. So I'm gonna take Caitlin King here. I don't hate the idea of taking Kinchins either, if that's where your heart feels that we should have gone. So in summary, you had the Giants trading down from pick 6 to pick 9 to get Justin Fields. The Bears take Caleb Williams and Joe Alt to build around their young offense. Washington and New England get quarterbacks. Jets end up with a big tight end at Brock Bowers. The Giants still get Roma Dunze out of the ninth pick. A lot of fun players. I mean, you have some teams shoring up their offensive line, like the Raiders and the Saints. Um, and of course the Cincinnati Bengals, which they're expected to do, and the Miami Dolphins. And then you have some fun wide receivers in the back, the first round here with Brian Thomas Jr. opposite of CeeDee Lamb, adding Keon Coleman in replacement for Mike Evans, adding Adonai Mitchell to that Buffalo offense, and adding Troy Franklin to Lamar Jackson and his weapons, and then adding Xavier Worthy to the Kansas. Wow, these are 5 fun wide receiver spots. I love that. Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman, Adonai Mitchell, Troy Franklin, Xavier Worthy. I like all of those. And then you have the wide receivers going at the top of the draft with Marvin Harrison Jr. ended up in Arizona, Malik Neighbors ending up in with the Chargers, which I haven't had in a mock draft yet. And then, of course, Roma Dudes, I mentioned with the Giants and Brock Bowers with the Jets. A lot of fun weapons going to fun teams. I like this a lot. I like the way this mock draft shook out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Where should I have gone differently? Should your team have taken someone else? Do you think there's more quarterbacks to go in the first round? Because I only had the first 3 picks and then no quarterbacks after that. Maybe a guy like I'm blanking on his name already. Maybe a guy like Washington's quarterback ends up in the first round. Michael Penix Jr., there it is. Or even a guy like JJ McCarthy, or even a guy like Bo Nix ends up in the back of the first round. I don't know who would be taking him because most of these teams have their quarterback. Unless Tampa doesn't re-sign Baker Mayfield. I don't know. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Where would you have done differently? I hope you enjoyed this mock draft. Thank you very much for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I appreciate the support. Thanks for watching. Peace out.